In today's day and age, when it comes to projects, they're becoming more complex, and as a result of complexity, there comes a lot of change associated with it. And in this video, we're going to talk about change control in projects so you can know how to organize that and do it successfully. What is change control? Let's take a look at my handy dandy PMBOK from PMI. This is what us as PMPs use to get information. So the official definition of change control, let me get to the right page, is a process whereby modifications to documents, deliverables, or baselines associated with the project are identified, documented, approved, or rejected. Okay. So what does this mean? It means that anything that you change to your approved baseline project plan ought to go through some sort of change control management. Now, things to look for and how I kind of really just make it really easy is anytime I'm looking to change scope, time, or budget that is going to impact and be a shift from a normal parameter, because again, you can have shifts inside your timeline that you don't have to go through change control because you're just shifting within the set parameter that you have. But if you're now moving that parameter, or for a budget, you have an amount and you now need to ask for more, or for the scope, you want to add more to it, guess what? You need change control. It is so easy for someone to say to you, hey, can you just add that to this, please? It's going to be really simple, extremely easy. But what they don't realize is that simple request can actually lead to an increase in timeline, pushing out your go live date, actually having more impact to your deliverable, maybe costing more money, and where are you going to get that budget from? So project change control is super, super important. Before we move on to talk in more depth about change control, I have a free webinar on the 5 fundamentals of project management that I highly recommend you check out. And guess what? It's free and it's a webinar and you can get it from the link below this video. So definitely go check it out. Project change control key elements. Now, there are 4 distinct key elements when it comes to project change control and ensuring that your scope, time, and budget stay on track and that you're analyzing it properly. So the first one is change identification. You want to have an understanding and identify what exactly is the change that is being asked. Change analysis. Once you understand what's being identified and what's being asked of you, you now just have to analyze it to understand the impact. Change response. Once you've done the analysis and understand if you're going to take it on or not, you now have to respond to it. Are you accepting it? Are you rejecting it? Are you still going to be thinking about it? That becomes really important too. And the last is change communication. You need to now communicate what exactly have you decided to do. Are you accepting it? What's the impact? Who's impacted? Do you have to do another rendition of your project plan? If it's being declined, why is it being declined? Allowing for the person who initiated that request to let them know that it's been declined. Again, those are the 4 key elements when it comes to change control that you need to ensure that you go through from a process perspective. Project change control tools and techniques. Now, I like to keep this simple because sometimes when we think of change control, it feels extremely ominous and it's like, oh my goodness, this is going to be extremely paper heavy and a lot of work. And it doesn't have to be. If you understand tools and techniques and you make it very simple, and guess what? I streamlined it for you too because I believe in that in my online project management course, Slay Project Management. Basically, it's about using it as a technique to make sure that people who are wanting the change truly want it and are not just saying it for the sake of saying it and asking you for it, and that if the change goes through, you capture all your information. Remember, there's those 4 aspects you have to look at from a change perspective that I mentioned in the tip before. So what are some of the tools? Well, the tool is simply I call it a 1-pager. It's a sheet that has very specific questions that you need to ask the person who is requesting the change. What is you requesting? Why are you requesting it? What are the pros and cons of that request? What is the budget increase potentially if this request goes through? Are there additional resources? These kind of key fundamental things that you need to ask to ensure that you're really thinking it through, because if the change goes through, you need that information to make changes and update your project plan. But if the change doesn't go through, there's good reason why, because you have this information to really make good, solid decisions and pass that information along to your steering committee, who can give the final yay or nay. Now, when it comes to techniques, it's a process. So yes, we have to identify it, analyze it, communicate on it, make decisions on it, but it's important that you also teach everybody what that process is. So I always say to my team members and those stakeholders involved, if you have a change and that change is within the current parameters that we have within this project, then we probably don't need a change control, but we still have to talk about it as a team to understand what the impact is. But if there is a change that's going to shift scope, time, or budget, then we have the process to follow. You have to identify it with the project team, bring it up at a meeting. You have to fill out the change control form that we talk about as a team to make a decision collectively. Is it really going to work? We then, if we decide that something has to be escalated, we bring it up to the steering committee, because again, they're going to do all our final approvals, particularly for something that may need more budget or may need an increase in time. But we as a team decided that it really was worthwhile and we should consider this particular change. And then afterwards, you have to then implement it into your project plan and ensure that those new tasks are distributed accordingly so you can start executing on it. So that's the process, the technique of implementing your change control. And the tool really is a simple one-pager sheet, document, template that allows you to get all the information that you need to successfully execute on change control in your project. Now, don't forget to save your seat for that free webinar that I have for you. The link is below this video. Now, make sure you watch this next video, because you need to understand risk, because you're definitely going to have to look at that as you're looking at change control. On that note, if you could like this video, subscribe, and join this awesome community. I will see you at the next one. Ciao.